All right. And last but most certainly not least, I'm excited to introduce you to Sydney Fischer, who will provide our final pitch.
Thank you, Amanda. All right. Hi, my name is Sydney Fischer. Thank you all for being here today, and Maureen, Ted, Jason, and Ashley for coming to judge. I am so excited to be presenting my company, ModernTrial, as a part of the Spring 2021 40 Acres Founders Program. So before I go into my company, I'll give some background on myself and how I came across this problem. I study neuroscience and have interned with a couple of different biopharmaceutical companies while in college. I first got exposed to clinical trials this past summer working with a company, and every week at our team meetings, the topic was always, who do we need to work with to find more patients? And every week, our trials, I was surprised to find out we were only enrolling 1 or no patients a week. So why was enrollment so slow? I started talking to my managers more about this problem and doing my own research in detail to figure out why is it so difficult to find the patients that we need. And now I'll introduce a few examples of what I found. From the headlines here, it's clear that finding eligible participants is especially difficult when you're looking for participants from a certain minority population. And focusing in on the Moderna trial that we've all heard of, the COVID-19 vaccine trials were the most publicly followed clinical trials in history, and everyone knew they were going on. And even trials that big with that much exposure struggled to recruit underrepresented patients. Moderna had enrolled about 30,000 patients by October, but even after hiring outside help, they weren't able to meet the numbers that they needed for a good demographic breakdown within their sample. So they pursued some sites that were not within their initial game plan of their large commercial sites, specialty sites that had unique community-based programs that would allow them to reach the minority communities that they desperately needed for the trial. So ultimately, this recruitment problem delayed the COVID-19 vaccine approval. So why is this an issue, even for studies this large and for so many studies in the clinical trial space? Not being able to meet enrollment timelines causes $3.9 billion in losses for clinical trial sponsors every single year. In a study, the patient sample needs to be both large and representative of the overall population, so demographic breakdown is just as important as the overall sample size. I grew up my whole life wanting to go into healthcare, to be at the forefront of society's biggest innovations and big discoveries that were happening to improve people's lives. When I think of healthcare innovation, this is not a number that I want to see. So overall, I found out through further research that 80% of patient enrollment timelines are not met. And these are some of the pain points behind why that is. Let's dive a little bit deeper into these problems. So specifically, low public awareness about clinical research. For many of us in America, especially, participating in clinical research is not top of mind. We would not think to seek out a trial unless we were faced with a life-threatening condition or we had few other options. And in reality, there's thousands of studies going on right now that range from dermatology trials to oncology trials, and even a pediatric treatment for ADHD being video gaming. That actually just got FDA approved. So the numbers on this slide, we can dive in a little bit into why there are so many trials going on that people don't know about. Only 4% of the US population has participated in clinical research, but 70% believe that there need to be more research opportunities. This tells us that for some reason, the information about the opportunities that do exist is not getting to the patient level. Barriers to accessibility. The average patient lives about 2 hours away from the research site when they're participating in a clinical trial, and limited access to specialty centers like mistrust and logistics, all of these factors may contribute to why certain populations have been so underrepresented in clinical research. Physician dependence. 64% of patients would prefer to hear about opportunities from their healthcare providers, yet less than 0.2% of people are referred to trials by speaking with their healthcare providers. Do you think your doctor could refer you to a clinical trial that you meet the eligibility criteria for if you ask them to? This disconnect is because in reality, doctors aren't able to keep up with every new study that's happening in their research field. And so this expectation on the patient side is not matching what the healthcare industry is actually able to do. Massive data fragmentation. Finding patients is a numbers game, and trials often open sites outside of the US just so that they can recruit enough patients for their studies. All of these issues are why I started ModernTrial. I want to help people take charge of their medical care and find the best opportunities for their own health, regardless of their situation. And ModernTrial delivers customized and specific clinical trial enrollment solutions through data-driven insights and direct-to-patient education. You might be wondering, who are the important players in a clinical trial and what are they responsible for? So here you can see sort of an outline of who those people are and what the hierarchy is. The pharma sponsor pays for the trial. They hire a clinical research organization to help them select the best sites who in the past have worked the best at enrolling patients of a certain profile. Those sites and the healthcare providers who work there enroll the participants. And so where does ModernTrial fit into this model? By working with a patient-first model, trial recruitment is no longer physician-dependent, and ModernTrial can reach patients who haven't considered that a clinical trial might be an option for them. We can communicate opportunities ranging from low-risk, non-travel studies to potentially life-saving treatments. And by bringing patients directly into a trial and doing pre-screening, we can optimize site selection so that those barriers for travel, if required, are no longer as big of barriers. This will support the sponsor's enrollment requirements better and also supplement the work of the CRO. And how will we do this? Build partnerships with insurance providers. This is key to get access to the electronic health records that show us how to find a very specific profile of patient. And the good news is that insurance providers have shown they're willing to basically do this for free in exchange for certain data insights and the potential long-term benefits of having to work with fewer claims by having their customers potentially participate in investigational research. So here's a bit about our market. At a high level, the global clinical trials market is $47 billion. In North America, the active recruiting trials that struggle with enrollment timelines is valued at 4.8 billion. And then the serviceable obtainable market are those trials that have stated that they rely mostly on outsourced help for recruitment of trials, and they would be at risk for terminating the trial without the outsourced help. So these are big numbers, but I also want to remind that the US spends more on healthcare than any other nation. It's into the trillions of dollars. So this really is our serviceable obtainable market. Market growth potential. This market for clinical trial technology is projected to grow to 5.3 billion by 2030 because patient recruitment services are in such high demand. So this is a 13% compound annual growth rate. And the reason this market is growing so fast is because of that $1,358 per patient enrollment cost. So have you ever heard of a market growing this quickly that doesn't have competition? We have some competition. The good news is that all of the major competitors we're working against have distinctly different strategies to deliver their services. And most importantly, there's no market leader right now. So that tells us that despite this issue persisting for decades, no one has quite solved the problem yet. These are our 2 minutes left. Thank you. These are our 2 biggest competitors. They differentiate. Antidote is a patient-initiated trial matching service. Deep6 AI, their customers are healthcare providers, so slightly different models. So what's our model? We are slightly different, and we figured out that based on our expert interviews with people who are working with pharma companies in medical affairs and clinical operations, that a milestone payment structure is extremely attractive to support the work of a CRO. So our contracts will be paid per performance, and we will agree to enroll X number of patients by Y deadline. If we don't meet those goals set in the contract, then we do not get paid, and that is what is so attractive. So our contracts will be about 2 to 3 months in length. So they will be priced by niche of patient population and the volume that are needed for the trial. And then we're only paid if the contract is fulfilled. So we are a patient first and site second model. This is not a brand new model. Medical affairs will often go to patient advocacy groups to recruit, but this is not done at scale, and it doesn't reach those who don't know that clinical trials are an option. Our go-to-market strategy is going to start with purchasing data access from companies that already have insurance provider partnerships. We'll use that data to find patients and suggest they're trials that they are eligible for that have low participation barriers. So non-pharma, or maybe a dermatology study where you can get the cream shipped to your house. Then we will rely on their nearby or their specific healthcare providers to let them know about the opportunities, analyze our performance in those initial matching cases, and then bring that data to the insurance providers to pitch the partnerships. Once partnerships are secured, we'll move to higher revenue trials and continue pursuing our bigger goal of democratizing clinical research. I can't thank my team enough. This has been a long semester of a lot of improvements in research, pivoting, and finding a really great product market fit. These are some of my mentors that have been involved with the process. Can't thank you enough, Amanda, for running a great program. And in questions, we can start talking about some of the next steps and how exactly we'll pay for an MVP so that we can get started and start making money, working with clients, and serving patients and providers. And I will open up the floor for questions. Thank you so much for listening.